This is TV Ontario, broadcasting simultaneously in the Central and Eastern time zones. Our programs are carried via the Annex satellite to communities all over Ontario.
How Will You Manage is next, but first, this message.
How does organizational change occur? As a manager, the answer is of more than theoretical interest. You'll be expected to initiate and manage organizational change throughout your management career. Module 3 of your TVO guide introduces the concept, FIX to the rescue. FIX stands for Find Out, Initiate, and Exercise Leadership. In modules 1 and 2, you read about techniques for assessing your staff. When it comes time to initiate change, you have to know how to help them. Your guide describes common motivators, the role of rewards as a management tool, and it helps you identify which types of employee behavior you want to reward. Have you considered the use of a team management approach to initiate change? A big advantage is that shared participation in the process usually means increased commitment to the solution. But there are disadvantages. Your TVO guide will spell them out for you as well. And then there are leadership skills. Contrary to the popular adage, leaders can be made, given the sort of grounding and practical skills that you'll get in this course. Stay tuned at the end of the program for information on how to get this guide, if you haven't yet.
We have lots to cover. Welcome to day 3. Okay. So what have we learned about management so far?
Okay, I learned that the manager should assess the environment before acting, and they should also know the various resources on hand.
And to do that, you've got to consult your people, organize and prioritize your goals and objectives. So we have COP.
The manager has to clarify relationships with superiors, peers, and employees.
I was just glad to learn that I wasn't the only new manager to make mistakes.
Okay, so good summary of what we've got so far. And what we're talking about is really determining what and how to gather input for good decision making. So as a manager, you're going to be responsible to initiate changes. And those are the changes to optimize the use of your resources. Now we're going to assume a thorough assessment here and that you need improvements. And something has to change, and that's what we're going to concentrate on today, okay? To learn and practice the skills to see changes through. Happier, more productive people, introduction of change. The key concepts are under the acronym, the 3 letters, FIX, okay? And these 3 concepts will deal with management of change. So one of the keys to success in the way in which your people will support the change that you're going to bring in. However, the question is, where does the initiative for change come from?
From some executive about 19 times removed from the realities of what the company does.
Exactly, yeah.
So sad, but true. Well, you get this circular that says, due to changing economic scenarios, the following policies will be implemented effective today. Okay.
In reality, the ideas for change should come from the people that you're working with.
That's right, yes. So lasting change comes from within, and the manager's job is to create that environment to foster the change, okay? So it's time, actually, we return to the Centerville Feed and Seed Store. Are we ready? Okay. All right.
Bill Beaver had recently been named manager of the shipping department of the Centerville Feed and Seed. Having just completed his MBA in his first few weeks in the management training program, Bill was gnawing at the bit to prove himself. He'd already learned the importance of assessing before acting. To deal with a problem, he pulled his staff in for a meeting. The department was falling behind in peak periods. Bill suggested that the root of the problem was inefficiency in the way-bill system. He asked for recommendations from his people, and some very good and practical solutions were offered. Bill thought about what he'd heard and thanked his staff. They were pleased to be involved in the process. But that night, Bill reread through some case histories in his university textbooks and decided to implement a different plan, one which hadn't been discussed at the meeting. Bill was sure his solution would not only solve the problem, but would make him a star. Move over, Ayakoka. Not surprisingly, Bill's plan came as a complete shock to his staff. Their input was nowhere to be found, and Bill's idea was met with moans and groans. Soon the noise died down, but so did the work. And within several days, Bill's workers had virtually deserted him. After hearing from the workforce, Pete Snow called Bill aside. Bill had gone through the motions, but the most important aspect of the managing process was missing: the implementation of his staff's ideas as well as his own. After all, everyone wants to contribute. Without the feeling of involvement, even the best ideas will fall on deaf ears.
Okay. All right. So what's the essential message here?
The message, I think, is that dictatorial techniques just don't work in the long term.
Absolutely. The workers on the floor have to be involved in any change in the workplace.
And the manager has to make them feel that they have a real voice in the decision-making process. Okay, so, all right. So participation and involvement of the employees are really important points. So how can the manager get people interested, involved in problem solving in the department? What are some of the techniques?
Group discussions. When we practiced facilitating skills the other day, I found some real helpful hints in the manual. It says if you allow people the opportunity to talk, they will say their piece.
Rewards always provide a good incentive. Bonuses, extra holidays, profit sharing. I think it's more than that, though. You need to convince your people that change will make their work more efficient and more enjoyable.
But it's not enough to ask for input and consider ideas. One of the books I read stresses the need to provide people with a feeling of shared responsibility.
Sounds like abdicating the responsibility of management to me.
No, I don't think that shared responsibility has anything to do with abdication, because the manager is still ultimately responsible, right? And she's going to get more from the people if they have a feeling of ownership.
Okay, well, let me try something here with you. See if you can convince me to give you a drive home at the end of the workshop.
That's easy. Here's $5. Oh. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you if you drive me home. This is 1988. All right.
I'll buy you dinner after the session.
How about 10?
I can't be bought, and my dinner is paid for. Okay.
John, hold on a second. John, I got one. Drive me home tonight, or I'll punch your lights out.
I can't be intimidated.
How about
$20.
what would motivate you to drive me home?
Well, you see, she's got the drive, all right? She's
Why?
got the
What
drive.
did she do? What did she...
She asked. She asked me what would motivate me, okay? She looked interested, and that's more powerful than bribes and threats, right? So your interest in individual, find out what people are interested in. That's all, okay? So the first concept, or F, all right, is find out what people are interested in. Find out what motivates people. You know, there's an entire science here, okay? But it all resolves itself into common sense. Now, in your manual, there are some theoretical explanations, and you can look them up. But the context is really to find out what makes people tick. Now, look inward for a moment, okay? What drives people to work?
Oh, cars, buses, and taxis. Roller skates.
No.
Rickshaws and gondolas.
Right, we're talking motivational drive here.
Well, I know I work best when I'm in a pressure cooker type situation.
Money. If I didn't need money, I wouldn't work.
Okay, that's a big one.
Come on, Mario. Money's not the only thing that gets you going. I've seen you in action. You love being in the spotlight. He loves it. He loves being in charge.
Pure acceptance. Pure acceptance is a good motivator. Being acknowledged for doing a better job.
I got to be honest with you. I think my biggest motivator is fear of being fired.
Well, if it's obsessions you're looking for, I've been referred to as a workaholic.
Oh, that's
Really?
But I really enjoy working.
Well, okay. But individuals are motivated by different things, and what works for one may not work for another, okay? So people act in response to a perceived result of their actions, and those results can be either positive or negative. So positive, a raise, a promotion, a pat on the back. Negative, a drop in pay, a decrease in responsibility, or even losing your job, George, okay? So tell you what, let's take a look at what these managers have to say.
in order to motivate people, you have to understand what motivates them. And for some people, it can be salary. For other people, it can be just their ego and letting them know what a good job they've done. And for other people, it can be job security.
When looking at motivation, one of the keys is that there has to be something in it for the people who you're trying to motivate, the people that are working for you. It can't just be your goals that you want those people to do so you're going to look good. They have to get something out of it as well.
I would say probably the biggest reason that people leave any job that they're in today is probably lack of recognition. I know a lot of people will probably say, oh, it could be salaries or benefits, and I'm sure they play an important part. But I'll bet you when push comes to shove and they're shoved up against the wall, the number one reason is recognition, lack of recognition. People want to be patted on the back. They want to be told they did a good job. They want someone to say hello, good morning, goodbye, thank you.
The other thing about motivation and keeping people on track is recognition. It's so simple, and yet every person can relate to it, yet so many managers don't practice it. They see people doing well and they let it pass. They don't take time to celebrate a win, and it's really important that those kind of things take place. And every time I do it and I see it turn someone on, I say, why don't I do it all the time?
Okay. So that's it for our managers, all right? And the main point that's being made is the manager has to be aware of what's being reinforced, okay? Negative reinforcement will get you zilch.
One of the authors I was reading used the phrase, the things that get rewarded get done. So you have to give positive reinforcement for good work.
That's not too surprising, whether it's in or out of the office. People want and need to feel that they're recognized for their actions and that their input into the situation is producing results.
Well, let's do some work for a bit, okay? And we have some material copied out of your manual, and these are case studies, all right? And what you need to do is read these and determine the reward that will fit the deed, okay?
Three of us agreed that was the best direction to take.
Yep,
Okay.
simply and economically.
Yep.
The way to do it.
Very good input. If you reward the effective behavior, you're going to get more. Next group.
Okay, we had a case study of somebody who gave up an entire weekend to finish a report for her boss's presentation. So we thought of two rewards. First, recognition. Figured if we had her come into the presentation, that'd be good. Second, we'd give her the next Friday off to make up for that weekend loss. And by giving it to her as soon as possible, that would reinforce the reason for the time off, i.e. good performance.
Good. That's a good answer. All right. Yeah, that's really good. Thanks very much for that.
That was
okay?
my idea.
And sure. And the last group, and you had that familiar case, didn't you?
We had the case of the crying child. Well, actually, that was my terminology. The case study involved an employee who consistently complained about any and all aspects of the workplace. It's sort of like a little child who cries for little or no reason and won't stop crying until he's given some candy, which positively reinforces the crying. Likewise, the complaining employee always seemed to get attention. Well, how do you stop that? Our answer was to try and change the behavior by ignoring it. A suggestion. Sort of like letting the child cry himself to sleep.
Okay. And that's the right answer, and it's called extinction. If you don't give a reaction, the person has nothing to gain, and they simply stop behaving that way. It's better than negative reinforcement, where the person actually suppresses the behavior. Okay? So that's really good input. Now, let's just recap where we've been. You have to be clear with reference to the results that you want to get. You need to identify the behavior that is going to produce that result. Okay? And you need to decide on the type of reward that you're going to offer. Okay? And that will promote that behavior. And finally, provide positive feedback. And some of the common threads that are going through this is the desire of the individual to feel that he's part of a team, okay? So let's have Pete introduce that subject.
Bob Badger was another of the management trainees at the feed and seed store. Bob had recently been promoted to manager of the motor pool. And for the first couple of weeks, he'd made a lot of progress. After assessing the situation, He organized and prioritized the activities he knew were needed to make his operation more efficient. And Bob was a firm believer in the abilities of those around him. He delegated all of the tasks on his list, made everyone feel important within their own area of expertise. One of Bob's staff was made responsible for painting the garage. Another was in charge of general repairs to the structure, and yet another was in charge of choosing the color of the paint. Soon it became apparent that delegation is one thing, but an integrated work plan is quite another. And the employees began to question Bob's management abilities. Pete Snow heard of the troubles. His experienced eyes soon spotted the fundamental problem. Taking Bob aside, he treated him to a blinding flash of the obvious. In essence, he said, the left hand always has to know what the right hand is doing. The manager is the quarterback, but you have to let the rest of the team see the playbook, or else you'll never connect to achieve the same goal.
So what's Pete trying to get across here?
That employees need to be aware of what's happening around them.
Okay, good. Anything else?
That if work has to be constantly redone or undone, the employees will soon find out and mutiny.
So how does Bob get by his problem?
By building a team. That way the duplication and undoing of work would be alleviated.
Okay, so building teams, all right? The manager really is a coach. It's like a football coach, and everyone needs to know the game plan. You need to know your roles, and those roles are the ones you're asked to play. So building a team is putting together the energy to carry out work effectively. So for the next hour or so, we're going to work on team building, and we've got the survival game for you. I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is you're going to the Caribbean. The bad news is you have been dumped on a deserted island. Okay? Gotta be a crash, gotta be a crash. So you've got to figure out how to survive, okay? We have all of the instructions in your book under the tab for today, okay? So take a look in there, and you'll be working as a full group here, entire group working together. What you need to do is to figure out how to survive. All the instructions are there.
Here it is. Oh, okay.
Okay? And go to it.
You guys definitely matches.
Yeah, well, we're buying
about that matches. Come on, Bob, you got something special to say, sir.
Fresh water. Everybody's in agreement about this. We do need matches. And we need a flare.
Right.
Matches was before the flare?
Job is still like a tie.
Who knows? Who knows?
Wait.
So we don't have to discuss this.
No, I think we're in agreement.
Okay, yeah.
Yo, have you got it?
I think we got it.
You got it? Well, okay, you ready? Sarah's got it? Okay, all right. Well, I certainly hope you had an enjoyable and informative time. You know, when you're forced to make decisions, you learn about, in a group, you learn so much about others, you learn about yourself as well. So what did you learn, as a matter of fact?
Well, I have to admit that for about the first 20 minutes, I didn't think we'd ever come together as a group.
Kill each other.
It was interesting to watch the group dynamics. I think in the end, we all learned that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, I think by listening to other people's views, I also got a different perspective. Some perspectives actually I wouldn't have considered before. And in the end, I think that led to a better decision.
Yeah. I got the same idea. Even when I considered some of the other opinions to be off the wall, it did give a different perspective.
Like this car business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to allow for and solicit the input of all. You have to have everyone involved.
Right. Well, we get those kinds of responses, and I've seen a lot of people struggle through the process. But how many people were involved in battles and arguments?
Oh, I definitely was.
Okay. How about angry and hot under the collar? Same number. So, how many thought that your process of consensus seeking was improved as you went along?
Oh, definitely.
So.
Everyone. So conflict isn't necessarily bad. I spend a lot of time convincing business people of the importance of working in teams, and there's some fundamental steps that come out of that. Number one is determine the makeup and the balance, the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of your team. And then identify and support the team leaders that come out naturally from the team. And set up a team environment which allows for input from each and every person on the team. That's the I in the fix concept, okay? So we'll fill that in later. And finally, establish attainable goals so that you have small victories to show for your teamwork, okay? Why don't we have a look at what our business managers think about teamwork?
Teamwork is important everywhere, I think. There's just no place for the individual to operate all by themselves. Often you'll find that we talk about entrepreneurs, but even the best entrepreneur needs other people and a team in order to carry out their ideas.
I think in the past we focused very much in North America on individual performance. And while individual performance will always be important, I think we did that at the expense of operating as teams of people. I think we've learned some very tough lessons in that regard from offshore competition.
At Husky, teams are essential in just about anything we do. For example, we have a number of new projects, new products coming out, which is a combination of engineering, purchasing, shop, assembly, and testing, getting that product on the go as quickly as possible. Any product we do, anything we go through is an interdisciplinary team approach. It's the only way in a technology business such as ours that you can exist.
None of us is as good as all of us. You're only, I mean, we can go through all the cliches. The chain is only as strong as the weakest link. Everybody counts. Teams are extremely important.
Okay, so we get from our managers that teamwork is vital to their operation, but let's turn our minds now to the leaders of those teams. And what traits, what characteristics do they exhibit?
Well, the characteristic I admired most about a boss I once had was the old damn the torpedoes attitude, resulting in decisions, even at times against common wisdom. I mean, the guy was great.
Damn the torpedoes. These are dogtails right down.
I admired something a lot more simple in a manager that I knew. No, listen, are you with me on this?
No.
He knew the work. He knew the work, ladies and gentlemen, and he wasn't afraid to roll up his sleeves and help out when it was necessary.
Okay, that's a good point.
There's something elusive about what makes a person a leader. I know I'm most impressed by a person who, having considered all of the facts, doesn't hesitate to act.
The person I see as an ideal leader is the person who gives me the greatest amount of room to act on my own, yet when needed, he's always there.
He's there, yeah. Right, nice. Okay. And Becky?
I like to see someone who recognizes and appreciates my expertise. And that's the type of person that I'll return my respect to.
Okay. Well, yes. So people respond and are led by a variety of leadership traits, okay? And it's important to understand those as a new manager, and your style will depend on the type of people that you lead, on the subject of which I'll lead you to coffee break. And as we've discussed, we need different rewards for different people, okay? Same for leadership. The situation and the ability of your people will vary, okay? So as a manager, you need to exercise leadership. That's the X in the fix, okay? Sorry, okay? All right. So we know that we need a variety of styles to lead subordinates, okay? And first, the manager needs to determine the ability and the willingness of the employees to do a particular job, right? Then you choose a style of leadership which meets the needs of that particular employee. Okay? Now, let's have a look at those questionnaires I asked you to answer last night. Okay? Remember the ones with a dozen questions were in your manual, right? Okay? All right, now in addition to that, you'll find in the third section of your manual a situational leadership chart. Okay? Got it? All right. So we stated the need for the manager to determine the ability of the person to do the job, and this is known as, it says readiness, right? So that you're going to get 4 levels, are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. All right. So you look in the chart, you see the levels are in such a way that if you choose a level of readiness, and you follow the line to where it intersects in the continuum there, okay, it tells you what style of leadership to use for that situation. What you have is Telling, selling, right, participating, and delegating. That's great. Okay. Okay, so let's try it. You've got a subordinate who has both a high level of skill to do the job, happy to do it. What would you do?
Well, let's see. The person's an expert. That's R4 readiness. They can probably do the job better than I can, so I would delegate.
Quite right. Okay. All right, let's try another one. Real good. A brand new employee, first month on the job, and you're showing a new task to them. What will you do?
That's easy. Their readiness is low and R1, so I'd tell them what to do.
There
You know,
go.
I like it because it's different. It tells you how to react. You could literally map it onto your mind and use it as a reference.
Okay, real good.
Yeah, this looks like a development tool. The object would be to get your employees all into the readiness 4 level. That means delegating. And that also means leading your people back into the development stage, involving everyone.
You just need to remember that not everybody is R4 material, and nor would you want everybody to be. All right. Now, this chart has lots of applications, especially as a sounding board for the decisions that you're making. Okay? All right, let's have a look at some of those questions from last night. Yeah. All right? Okay. Okay. All right. So the group you analyzed in your case study is at R3 or 4, right? Okay. Because they show they can handle this kind of situation.
Yeah, but they're heading in the wrong direction. I'd put them back on track. Sell them.
That'd be too heavy an interference, Paul. You don't have to be so hands-on. Delegate. Part of leadership is allowing people to make mistakes.
Okay, well, good point. What about the case where the new computer system is being introduced to the admin section?
Well, at this point, they need some support. At least most of them do. Now, depending on the individual, the manager would be employing everything from a telling function through to a participation function. And as it's the first time that they would be using the new equipment, many of the people would need to be helped into the new role.
Yeah, and the manager should help to smooth the transition, too, to make sure that all of the staff is participating.
Okay, that's right. Participation is support, right? I have answer sheets. Okay, here we go. Right. 3 for you. You and 3 for you, okay? All right. And also, we have an evening opportunity.
Does that include drinks, dancing?
No, okay. And what this is, a task statement for a presentation that we're going to do tomorrow. Okay, all right. Becky, Mario, and Kathy, and then Paul, and Sarah, and George. Okay, all right. So we're going to be discussing communication skills tomorrow, so I'd like you all to get some practice, okay? All right? Everybody got the topics? Right name, right person? Okay, back to our key word. Fill in the words here. What does the F stand for? Find out. Okay, what about our I? Involve the people. Okay, and the X? Exercise leadership. Okay.
You got to do that. Come on down.
Okay. Okay, also we need to summarize on our day. Okay? Key points. Number 1, keep your staff involved. Right. Number 2, clarify the result expected required. Okay? Determine the type of performance that are required, okay, to meet the result. Okay? Reward the behavior. Build the team. Create attainable goals. Okay? Be a leader, exercise leadership. And we do that by telling, selling, participating, and delegating. Okay? All right. This is the end of day 3. Okay? You've got your, all right, you've got your homework. Review your day's principles, okay? And we're looking forward to day 4 of How Will You Manage? Thank you.
To order the $39 learning package